To play for the person I'm about to interview, have a chat with. It's actually bringing a story up to date, but now is the really important part of the story that we were teaching and telling just a few weeks ago. Benny King and Stand By Me. It's 25 to 3. It's BBC Radio Northampton. Now, I don't know whether you caught the back end of our programme yesterday afternoon, but I did say that tomorrow we were going to be having somebody with us who's a blogger, somebody who's got into the world of the internet, gives her views about all sorts of things and on a regular basis as well. She's one of 3 mummy bloggers who's just got back from Bangladesh, and her name is Sian too. She's in the studio with me now. Before we get to talk to her, though, I want you to think about this. There are almost 9 million children dying under the age of 5 every year at the moment. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is at the moment. There are a number of targets that have been set and that have been signed up to worldwide by the free world, by the Western world, by all sorts of nations and their leaders. Amongst them are these 3 goals. Number 1, to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Number 2, to achieve universal primary education so that by 2015 all boys and girls are able to benefit from a full primary education. And the third one, and that's the one that really grabs the attention, to reduce child mortality by 2/3 the children who are currently dying under the age of 5. Now that is a huge target, a reduction of 6 million deaths per year. At the moment, the planet is failing that target and some others besides. And there's about to be a big meeting taking place at the, I think it's the United Nations. It's Nick Clegg that is going to be representing our nation. He is going to be getting a very fulsome message from the 3 mummy bloggers who've just come back from Bangladesh. One of them comes from our neck of the woods, and I'll be talking to Sian too in a moment.
Welcome to a world of wonder. Science on the BBC. Catching a flight will make you age faster.
Passports, tickets, atomic clock.
True or false?
Right, now I'm just going to find a warp button which should accelerate me close to the speed of...
Find out as Bang Goes the Theory returns, putting science to the test. Tonight at 7:30 on BBC One.
Sian too is with me. She normally comes from Market Harbour, but she's been doing quite a bit of travelling recently. In the recent past, you might well have been reading about her exploits if you'd been on the Save the Children Fund website, where she's been blogging and giving her reaction to being in Bangladesh, where there is an absolutely horrendous situation currently going on without seemingly any change. She's been on television. She's quoted in the national press today. I think she's in the Times, actually. She's also been on television. She's now back in the UK after a relatively short visit to Bangladesh. She's with us and promised to come in and talk to us about what she saw. Sian, welcome back, first of all.
Hi. How
does Market Harbour seem by comparison to Bangladesh now that you've got back to family and friends?
Cold and clean.
Cold and clean, those two immediate observations. You went out to Bangladesh to be, in a sense, the conscience of the nation, to report back on what you saw. Now, you're a mum in your own right. How many children have you got, and what ages are they?
I've got 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, 19 and 9 my boys, and 8 and 6 are my girls.
So quite a spread of years in that case. When we first spoke, I was shocked to find that 9 million kids under the age of 5 are dying every year, and it's needless. You knew that you were going to be going out to see some fairly horrendous sights. That's partly why you were invited to go out by Save the Children, because you are a regular blogger, you were getting the message out. Did anything prepare you for what you saw?
No, I mean, that was one of the questions that you asked me last time I came in, was I prepared? And as soon as we hit the ground in Bangladesh, we were taken to a hospital facility. It was a clinic that Save the Children set up a few years ago, and we walked in to see babies lying there with really severe acute malnutrition, pneumonia, heart problems, skin problems caused by reactions to antibiotics.
Really, to antibiotics?
Yeah. I mean, this one girl, she's 10. She really struck a chord with all of us. She was so thin, she was just bones, and she was lying there so listless when we walked in, and we had gifts, we had colouring books and things, and by the time we'd been there about 10 minutes, she was sitting up, she was playing pat a cake with us, she was laughing, she was smiling, but her story was so sad. She lost her mum when she was 4 years old, and she has severe acute malnutrition, which is not a surprise. She had TB. She was given antibiotics that she then had a reaction to, that she's now got a severe skin infection. So she's got a whole catalogue of problems.
You mentioned this was a hospital set up by Save the Children, so they were responsible for its setting up in the first place.
Yes, that's right.
Why are the conditions as they are? Is it simply because there are too many children? There's just not sufficient helping hands to go round?
Well, the conditions in that hospital, we were soon to learn, were fantastic. They were by far the best conditions that we were to see through our whole visit to Bangladesh. But yes, there are too many people. The conditions are so remote. I mean, that was in the city, but when you go out into the villages and the countryside, the reason that the children aren't getting treated is because they live too far away from any medical facilities. So one of the things that Save the Children is doing, and is doing very successfully, is teaching women within the communities, that they're making them volunteer community healthcare workers. And these women are then responsible for between 150 to 200 households. They go and visit the families. They weigh the children, they teach them how to feed them properly, to give them a balanced diet, and then they catch problems like malnutrition and stomach infections and pneumonia. They catch them because they're getting regular health care. They're getting regular visits from a healthcare provider, and that makes a massive, massive difference.
Thinking about one of those particular goals, which is to bring down the infant mortality rate, how much of this is down to birth rates, and how much of this is down to education about, frankly, the number of babies that are being born there in the first place, which clearly aren't getting the support and the care that they would need to grow to maturity and in a healthy way? How much of that is down to medicine, and how much of it is down to education?
Well, I think that the whole, you have to look at it as a whole package, and Save the Children do that. They teach about birth control and breastfeeding. They've managed to increase the breastfeeding rate up to over 50%, and when they went into these areas it was way, way, way down. With good breastfeeding, that also reduces the amount of children that are getting malnutrition because they've got a balanced diet.
And presumably that also means that the nutrition of the parents must be getting better for them to be able to breastfeed in the first place.
Yeah. And part of the rest of the work that Save the Children do is educating people that they should have a good gap between their children. They want them to have a 5-year gap between their children. They're educating them about all the different ways of contraception, although the women tend to prefer to take the pill rather than having an implant. But those kind of things, it all works together, but you can see how well it's working because those projects are so successful in Bangladesh.
You mentioned the children, you mentioned the women. The men have got to take a responsibility in this as well. Is that falling down?
The men in Bangladesh don't, on the whole, support the women. We actually visited one family where there's a new Bangladeshi man who supports his wife. He looks after the children, he bathes them, he plays with them, and he's like one on his own.
He's a rarity.
Oh yeah. The one thing that you do see within the villages is the support of the other women. There's aunts and grandmas and sisters, and they all pull together. The houses are full of women. The men are all sitting on the streets or out at work, and that would be a huge difference if the men were to get involved. Definitely.
You've been out to Bangladesh. Your trip was provided by Save the Children. You, in return, were writing all the time and getting your messages out. What about the state in Bangladesh? What is it doing, working in partnership with Save the Children? Because what you've said seems to be all from the Save the Children side of things. Yeah. What about Bangladesh and the state system there? Is it supportive of its citizens?
Well, yeah, definitely. And they have a woman prime minister now, so that there's lots of things that are going on to support that. But it's a big job. It's a huge job out there, and it's a case of supporting and saving one child at a time, rather than taking on the whole project at once, because every child that's saved makes a difference.
What did the Bangladeshi people make of you being there? I mean, with the greatest of respect, number one, you're white. Number two, you're very, very blonde. Number three, you're tapping away on a keyboard. What was their reaction to you arriving in the midst?
Well, I'm used to being looked at like I'm a complete freak now.
Oh, that's a nice way of looking at it.
But that's it. We had somebody from Save the Children with us at all times, Annika, and she's fabulous. And she's like, "You guys need to get